we need a commitment to the capital projects, and the rest is just allocated within the general fund. Dr. Mitchell and I worked this aligned with what the board has said or told us they want, and that's why we create, so that's hence the transportation fund. The board said they want to have a new fleet, they want to commit to getting new vehicles for subsequent years, and this is how we kind of set that money aside.
Over 10 years.
Yes. Well, this would be a 5-year plan to start. Okay. With rotating cycles of bus and van to kind of stretch that out to the 5-year one.
We've heard it before during the budgeting process, but how do we, can you give us the reason why we go from a projected, what we projected versus the actual?
Yeah, so the biggest, some of the biggest things in the budget is we are always very conservative on our revenues because one thing is the state. The state doesn't tell us how much they're going to give us, and they're around 40% of our budget.
We have to make the budget before we know what the state is going to give us. So it's all estimation on our part.
That's how it's typically worked.
Conservative.
So we typically flatline because we have the whole harmless here in Pennsylvania. They won't reduce our funding below prior level, but there's no guarantee there's going to be an increase. Especially if there's no budget passed, we have no inclination of adding. So if we would add it and they somehow would take it away, or not give us all the funding we committed, then that kind of also does a negative effect across the budget. The other thing is we estimate the expenses based off of today's value. So if those values come down, or if we order things in less, we said we needed 25 things, well, now we only need maybe 22. That's a savings. So we see some savings to that. We see some staff that tenured staff have resigned or retired that we weren't forecasting. That then we get new staff, and that's always a savings here in the district. So it's basically the expenses, we have the worst case scenario, and then the expenses or the revenue side we just basically hold because we don't have information, and then when that actually comes through an actual people trying to save as much as they can, and we get more money than the state sometimes gives us. So when grant funding we didn't know about that comes available, such as this facility grant we didn't know at this time last year, that brings up some money that needs to go surpluses and supplements.
And with this general budget, can you say that there's compliance issues?
There is, so like we have to meet obviously all the state mandated costs within cyber school and charter and PSERS and special ed and all those. So those are like all the mandated costs we have to do. So there's a compliance issue with that portion.
Brian? Any thoughts on the?
I just want to kind of
Sure.
as we go through this next budget process, we'll be doing it again because it's a worst case scenario. And some people will look at us thinking that by the end of this next budget, we were going to be shutting down training boards at the end of the school year. That's just not the case.
We as a school district have to budget for the worst case scenario because that's the information we have. If we're doing the opposite effect, then we're short on money, and then we can't provide the services we say we want to provide. So that's where the budget comes into play.
So moving forward, we have a $3.7 million surplus that we have to be able to figure out where to put that.
Correct.
So as we figure out where to put that, how does that play into potential projects that we've had, that we've seen here, that may be able to be used, that may be able to be used for?
Yeah, so that's where that 3.2 million of the 3.7 is if the board or this committee wanted to move forward with all the facility grants as we see them and as we submitted them. That's where the funding that we would have to use from this year's surplus to get started with the middle school, high school, and then without knowing any information how this year's going to end, be able to fund ACES. So that would be basically the commitment now to say we're going to do something in the future. Now, if we would scale that back, post this commitment of 3.2, then that would just be used for other capital project lists for next year. That 10-year plan doesn't go away. This just addresses a portion of it. We also have to remember we have a lot of other spaces that need updating that we have in 10-year plan.
just so we, 3.2, there's flexibility within that 3.2, how you use it, but there needs to be approval of it.
Correct. And that would be within this November's meeting, so in 2 weeks from now, the board would have to approve that number so that I can have it within the audit and lock that.
And just coming back to the public school facility grant issues, the blue gym, the window replacement, that's part of this plan in what you want to do moving forward. But if we decide to say, hey, we want to readjust that, we still have the 3.2, but it wouldn't go here, but it would go somewhere else.
It would be in the capital projects, capital reserve kind of column, which is specifically used for capital improvements here in the district. Okay. So it can be used for such as future athletic improvements, other items that basically wear down or break down. A lot of times it's our parking lots, have you did Petromat, stuff like that. So it's just for those facility upgrades.
Jeannie, do you have anything to say?
And what's the total in the capital project right now?
Right now, if you take the 3.1 and less than 330, so it's just around 2.9 at the moment. Yeah, so the 3.1 was after the audit, and then we always, the board approves now for next year's capital projects, so that 330 is actually spent post 2023. So the net of those two is about 2.9.
So any thoughts about moving it forward from anybody?
And so you all are doing the 3.2, it's in the sense of doing the middle school, high school now, and pausing on the
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the recommendation.
We would pause on ACES to see if we could, have recoup. So I'll just say the 110,000 post ACES becomes a thing. So then next year we're going to come back and say, well, we're going to allocate the fund balance. So that's like, in lieu of knowing what that number is, we're maybe now doing a full project of both high school and ACES, but we're going to pause on ACES for another year to see if we can get additional funds.
So do we have to commit to the state to do it? Is what you're saying?
No, we would have to commit to allocating 3.2 now. We would have another year to say, if we have another surplus next year, we wanted to commit some more funding. If we're not comfortable with capital projects being 110,000, we can kind of add that back in.
How hard is it to move in or out of capital
It's
project?
easy to move them in. All it takes is board approval. To move them out, it's a little harder. So the
Well, then I don't think you should stick it all in there.
So that's where it comes in the conversation. If you want to commit to ACES now, so that we can work on it prior to 26, 27, or we wait till now in November, and then we're kind of in the same step where we have to spend it before 2027, June
So let me
2027.
ask this question differently. If you allocate money now in the capital projects, the most typical way to move money out of capital projects is to spend it on the capital projects that you approve.
Correct.
That moves it out. So the intent of capital projects is for capital improvements to buildings, grounds, the things that we have. So that's typically how it works. Capital projects fund is not needed or not intended to be a holding tank for certain things. It's intended to be used for facilities and campus upgrades.
And we typically try to link it to the next subsequent years of the 10-year plan, so that we had funds available for the board to approve what they thought was the most urgent need. So we're down to 110,000 as of today in 2026. We won't have very many things we can approve that amount of money. So we always have to do it now to then reassess next year about what they want to do.
With the grant funding for just the middle school, high school side, we were only like 2.4-ish. Is the additional that you all were talking about the athletics, or is that?
But that would be, so athletics would be, should be part of the athletic.
So the total is, we would need 5.3 to do all of it.
Correct.
So why are we doing 3.2 when we do the first half?
Because we currently have 2.9. So if we have 2.9 less than 358 you guys just approved for next year, that
So you
net,
want all of the capital projects?
that's why I said it would go down to 110,000
in 2026.
in total. That's all we would be left if we had looked at today's what we have today, information we have today, on funding levels, and we wanted to do all the projects at the level we submitted. So it's a lot of ifs, kind of if statements.
Correct.
So the biggest commitment the board and the committee has to decide tonight is, do we want to commit 3.2 that says, worst case scenario, we want to fund it all? We have the funding. The best case scenario is we scale it back and we can use that funding in future use to do other capital projects. which is
But it also is capital projects.
Correct.
In other words, you can't flip it.
But you can all, why can't we put it in once we decide to do it? Is my question.
You can.
So then what's the necessity? for it?
Because I think the timing issue for doing ACES this time next year puts us behind, because then they have to order a lot of rooftop units where the high school, they just have to do just the blue gym, and if they don't do the lower level. And the lower level is kind of at its own pace, because it's almost not being touched under construction right now. It's kind of a standard.
Can we only put money in the capital project reserve once a year, or can't we do it any month?
It's typically only done once a year, but the board can do it whenever they want. We just would only have information of what would be with fund balances this time next year. So that's why it's
So
typically
could
once a
we
year.
put it in the, or how much can we hold in the unassigned? Because there's a percent.
So unassigned is 8%, and an assigned value you can have, as long as it's assigned, as much as the board wants.
So this would be the 8%?
No, the 8% would be just unassigned, whereas that's where the 83,000,
Right.
that keeps us at the 80% level.
Since it's a capital project, it's an assigned.
So I'll refer you to the blue here. It'd be here. It's in the 83, the 3.2, this is the 7.9%. So anything to this side can be allocated as the board sees.
So if we did put 3.2 in the unassigned now,
Yeah, into an assigned.
Mhm.
Yep.
okay, into assigned or unassigned?
Well, it can't be unassigned. It has
That's
to
what
be-
I'm saying.
Yeah. So the unassigned is out, but it can be anywhere beyond an assigned. So if the board wanted to, we can assign it to facility grant improvements at 3.2, and then the board would have to approve it in time to move it to capital projects to do that. We just have,
What's the process to move money out of the capital project?
we would have to show a need for that, and the full board, I think it's a majority of, it's not a simple majority, it's yeah, it would have to go to.
So, this is my opinion. Why don't we hold it somewhere else until I mean, because if we can put it in at any month of the year at any board meeting,
It just comes down to time issue that we have to wait a month and before approval to then execute on said information.
Right, but if you budget it and it's approved, you never give the money back. It stays there, it's fine. That's it. You know what I mean? And
But it's gonna be used for capital costs, so that's kind of a,
Right.
that's kind of a.
But
Things
I
that
don't
need to
know.
happen, things that have to be taken care of.
right.
I don't see why we should kick the can down the road. It's like, well, if there's something needs to be done, then do it. And I think they say these need to be done.
Well, the thing is, other things will be kicked down the road.
It's
Just so you know.
Right.
And that's the decision,
That's
and
the
I think the
decision, right.
recommendation that we're bringing forward here is the recommendation of using the fund balance, or the surplus that we have in a sensible way to be able to offset the cost that we would have that the state did not provide us for the facilities at the high school, middle school, and delay the expense of ACES, so that what's missing here in the interim is all of the things that Tom does in the interim with the board to move money around and ensure that our fund balance and our assigned balances are what they need to be for our district to continue operating financially appropriately.
It's almost like you're asked to predict the future,
Right.
and you don't have the information to do it.
Right.
It's just that
How many
simple.
previous years have we had a fund balance or a surplus that has come back?
We typically always have a surplus due to the budget, the way the budget is.
So,
I just want to make sure that these are really dire, not you did it because you were trying to get grant money. You
Right.
thought you were going to get a lot
Right.
more, and so you put it out there. I
yeah,
wanna make
that's a
sure
good
it's
question.
dire,
Yeah, that's very good.
Not that you, and then the grant money didn't come in, but, you know.
I think
really.
for those of us, in response to that, Jeannie, for those of us here that were sitting in that bid opening, when we opened all the bids that came through, had the number of ad alternates so we could decide what we could do at that moment in time. One of the things that we had listed in that project was HVAC for the Blue Gym. And what we don't remember right now is the times that we had to move volleyball games in the fall because it was too hot in the gymnasium for our students to compete, and we moved to other facilities. What they don't see is the other times that we have in the spring when it's too hot for our students to be able to compete. So at this point in time, that was something that we thought, that board thought was a necessity. It hasn't changed. What's changed now is the grant opportunity, the money that's available, and now a plan to move forward in a financially responsible way.
So, but I'm with, I mean, in terms of what Jeannie said, if it's so hard to take it out, but it's easy to put it in, I can see the stuff that goes along with the high school project, because that's a more time-sensitive thing. But if we're gonna hold on the ACES anyway, why can't we assign it to an ACES improvement account, or wherever we wanna do, and then any month that the school board can put that into the capital reserve to be done. But I'm just the type of person that likes to, I get what you're saying, Brian, about if it needs to be done, but I don't wanna handcuff ourselves to, that we've gotta use the money for this if plans change along the way.
Just, yeah, I guess, we hear, the compromise here, I have to speak, would be that we could keep the 2.4 for ACES in an assigned general fund, but we want to move the portion for high school into capital projects due to time. That would be the difference, I guess, if we want to do that. We're still committing it, we still have it on fund balance, and I would create a separate category for facility grants, ACES facility grant, that would have that 2.4 million you see on the screen, to be able to do maybe next year this time, or at any time the board so chose.
So we kicked the 90s window down the road, chose to do HVAC in the 90s wing. Is that what happened? I can't remember. That's what we did.
I believe that's.
So we're gonna do HVAC in there, and we're gonna kick the windows down the road even farther. See,
I think,
no, there's actual ice on the inside of the windows in the winter. When, yeah. No, I know people who teach in that wing, and
if I may.
they wear coats and hats in the wintertime.
Brian, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The windows,
I'll speak to some of this.
thank you, Carl.
And the windows have been on there since 2011. To be replaced because they're leaking, they don't do any good. So by fixing the air conditioning, all that's gonna do is cost people more money. So without doing one to the other. The one thing that's probably upsetting a bunch of people is that $537,000 for the middle school fund. Basically, when you're taking that, you're dumping it back in the capital reserve to fix the capital project for the middle school, high school project. So all that money is just going into one pocket, and it's staying in that pocket until the 9 of us say it gets to go from that pocket out. It doesn't mean anything. Tom legally can't put it just any old place because it's got to be someplace specific. And he's at 7.9 now. If he goes to 8, not you, Money, you all get in trouble for going over that 7.9.
We unassign, but if we assign it to
Right,
somewhere
so
other
put it-
than the capital
Put it in
reserve.
the capital reserve, taking it out, Tom makes it sound like it's gonna take 3 knives. and
Well, it
a
sounds like
hammer.
it's gonna take an act of
It
Congress. to
it doesn't
it
take
out.
an act of Congress, but it's going in a space where it can be pulled out within a timely, effective manner.
For
to-
capital improvement.
for capital improvement, to keep, which is the basic principle of the building, which is to be warm, safe, and dry.
But say we get another facility, say they come out with another facility improvement that we would get, or whatever.
Then it still will be able to be matched. But
But-
what you're also not doing is you're not locking yourself in by putting it into another account, and all of a sudden, boom, the AC, a wall in this building collapses for some odd case,
For
whatever.
any contingency that may
A
come.
contingency.
Yeah.
It's still a capital project, that comes under capital projects, we can do it to take care of that immediately. If we put it into that assigned balance, that other assigned balance that you're saying, like a middle school project, and that wall collapses, then we've got to come in, we all got to do things to get done, and it's got to take, that little act of Congress to get, to replace that. By putting in that thing, all you're doing is putting your wallet and making money.
No, the thing I said was, I want to make sure that it's something
Yeah, yeah,
decided,
yeah.
not that we were trying to get grant money, and that's why we decided to do it. That was my thought.
Yeah.
I think we answered that.
Yeah.
Well, why do you wanna wait? What, I don't understand, to assign the money. Did you explain that to me? Why do you wanna wait till later in the year
Well,
to
they're
assign
saying
it
that
to
they're
the-
gonna assign, that we're holding on the ACES anyway. Like, we're not gonna do that right away, but we're putting the money in the project.
We're putting money in the future project, which then Tom can still add to, he can keep adding to it to cover it, and he never has to move it again. So it's not like it's going anywhere.
Yeah, I just wanna know where you think it would be spent other than capital project.
It's only going towards
Well,
facilities.
You know, not
It's
a bad
not going
point,
to
you know,
cover
but
a lunchroom deficit, it's not gonna cover, janitorial services, anything like that. It's going specifically and only for facilities.
Exactly. We're restricting, if something would occur, it would be a restriction on what that money can be spent.
Which you're gonna have anyway, no matter what happens. This is for facilities and facilities.
But
So wait, you're saying that the 3.2 is for county code facilities, no matter what we vote or anything?
No. The option would be, so let's just say it's the 3.2. So you can say, all right, I want 3.2, or the whole 3.7 is what this boils down to, the 3.7, let's take out that negative middle school, which confuses people. That 3.7, you're saying is gonna go, 3.2 of it is gonna go to capital funds, the rest is gonna go boom and boom. You can take that 3.2 and